What if the ugliest cup in your cabinet, the one with the chip you keep meaning to throw out, is worth more than the good china you only use at Christmas? 10 of these overlooked teacups have sold for hundreds, some for thousands, and one of them is sitting in more American kitchens than any teacup on earth. Let's find out if it's in yours right now. Here's the truth most people never hear. A pretty flower pattern means nothing on its own. Roses get painted on millions of cups a year, and most of those cups are worth exactly what they look like, $10 or $15. Nobody ever taught you to look past the flowers. Value does not live in the picture. It lives in the maker, the shape, the glaze, and whether the saucer still belongs to the cup. Get those right, and a cup you almost gave to Goodwill can quietly outprice a used car. Now let me be straight with you, the way a real dealer would, because I have watched families guess wrong in both directions. Your cup is almost certainly not the Meissen Swan service piece that sold for over $200,000 at a European auction house. Fewer than a couple thousand pieces of that service survived the war, and most of them never left museum storage to begin with. But the gap between a $10 cup and a $2,000 cup hides in plain sight closer than you think. And you can learn to see it tonight in under an hour, cabinet by cabinet, cup by cup. I want to say one more thing before we start, because it changes how you watch the rest of this. None of the 10 items on this list require you to be an expert. They require you to be willing to turn a cup upside down and actually read what is printed there instead of glancing at it and setting it back on the shelf. That is the whole method. Nothing more complicated than that. Number 10, Royal Bayreuth. If you have a cup shaped like something strange, a shell, a leaf, a little animal peeking out from the handle, your first thought is probably novelty, the kind of thing a tourist bought on vacation and nobody ever really wanted twice. That instinct is understandable, but look at the mold lines before you judge it. Royal Bayreuth has been working in Bavaria since 1794, and their figural pieces, tomato cups, sunbonnet baby cups, devil and card motifs, were only produced for narrow windows before the molds were retired and never used again. A Royal Bayreuth tomato-shaped cup and saucer has sold online anywhere from $90 to just over $600, depending on the mold and the paint quality. Here is your test tonight. Turn the cup over and look for a blue mark shaped like a shield with a crown above it. Then check the shape itself against everything else in your cabinet. If it looks like it does not belong with the rest of your dishes, that is often exactly the point of it. And the loss I see most often, a whimsical little figural cup gets grouped in with grandma's weird stuff and boxed up for $1 because nobody stopped to ask why on earth it was shaped like a tomato in the first place. Number 9, Occupied Japan. This one hides behind 5 words most people read as a warning label instead of a clue. Between 1945 and 1952, every piece exported from Japan had to carry the words "Made in Occupied Japan" stamped somewhere on the base, a requirement of the post-war American occupation. People see that phrase and assume cheap post-war souvenir, something a soldier brought home in a duffel bag. The opposite is often true. A hand-painted lithophane teacup, one where a hidden portrait appears only when light shines through the porcelain marked Occupied Japan, sold at auction for over $400. Your task tonight, hold the cup up to a lamp or a window and look straight through the wall of it. If a face or a scene appears glowing inside the porcelain, you are not holding a souvenir. You are holding a lithophane. The narrow 7-year window on that stamp is exactly what collectors are chasing so hard. Here is where it goes wrong. The stamp gets read as cheap and occupied. The cup gets priced at $2 at a garage sale, and the hidden portrait inside never even gets held up to the light before it walks out the door. Number 8, Noritake. In the early 20th century, Noritake built an entire export line aimed squarely at American housewives, and buried inside that ordinary-looking line are hand-painted Art Deco tea sets with lusterware finishes, that oil-slick shimmer that shifts color depending on the angle. To a modern eye, it can look almost gaudy, like something from a costume shop rather than a china cabinet. Here's what the box never told you. Noritake's lusterware period ran roughly from 1918 to the early 1930s, and the factory's best hand-painted scenic patterns, cottages, windmills, geisha figures, are gone from production forever. Rare Noritake lusterware sets in the scenic patterns have carried valuations up to $1,200. Your test is the shimmer. Tilt the cup under a lamp. If the glaze shifts between gold, green, and violet depending on the angle, and the base reads Noritake with a green wreath mark, you are holding the real thing. The mistake I watch happen, the shimmering cup gets called too shiny, too much, and the plain white one beside it gets kept instead. The shiny one was the money. Number 7, sterling and glass demitasse holders. This is the one where I have to slow you down because it looks like a solved case, and it isn't. A set of tiny cups in ornamented metal holders, each with a thin glass or china liner tucked inside, gets mistaken for leftover punch bowl cups and shoved to the back of a drawer. No one faults you for walking past it. Turn the liner over. A set of 6 sterling demi-tasse holders with matching Limoges liners has sold for close to $3,000. Limoges is the great French porcelain name, and the pairing of sterling silver with genuine Limoges is exactly what estate buyers chase hardest. Your task, lift the liner out and look for the Limoges mark, usually a small green or red stamp near the rim. Then check the metal for the word sterling, not silver plate. Sterling plus Limoges is the combination that pays. Here is where it goes wrong. The silver gets sold to a scrap buyer by weight, the little liners get given away in a junk drawer bag, and a matched set, worth thousands, quietly becomes a handful of melt value. Number 6. Shelley, Regency, and Bridal Rose. Shelley did not only make the sharp, geometric shapes collectors talk about most. In the 1920s and 30s, they also made a softer line, thin as paper, with a scalloped rim and a small cluster of painted roses that looks, at a glance, like 100 other English teacups from that era, the kind you'd walk past in an antique mall without a second thought. Here is what separates them. Shelley's bone china body was fired thinner than almost any competitor of the period, thin enough that light passes through it more evenly than through most rivals, and the factory closed for good in the mid-1960s, its molds destroyed rather than sold off. Fixed supply forever, no matter how much demand grows. A complete Shelley Bridal Rose breakfast set has carried valuations up to £800. Your test is the rim. Run a thumb around the edge, if it is scalloped rather than plain, and the base reads Shelley in green or black script rather than Foley, which was the earlier company name before the rebrand, you are holding the later, rarer mark. The mistake I watch happen most, the plain rose cup, gets grouped with 50 other rose cups from other makers and sold off as one undifferentiated lot, when the name on the bottom of just one of them was quietly worth more than all the others in the box combined. Number 5. Fine bone china, stamped simply China. This is the most common mistake I see, and I want to slow you down here because it costs people real money in both directions. You turn a cup over, you read the word China, and your heart does nothing because it feels generic. Here is the honest truth, and I respect you too much to dress it up. The single word China, without a country of origin printed underneath it, usually means the piece was made before 1891, when American tariff law started requiring imported goods to state their country of origin. That means an unmarked China cup could be older than a fully marked one sitting right beside it. Most of these still trade for $10 to $40 because age alone does not create value. But the ones with a pattern number hand-painted, not printed, underneath the mark have sold for $200 to $300. There is still one test worth running, and it is the prettiest one tonight. Hold the cup to a bare bulb in a dark room. If it is true, bone china, you will see your fingers glow faintly through the wall of the cup. That test tells you what the cup is made of. It does not tell you what it is worth. The mark, the pattern, and the paint do that. Number 4, Royal Worcester Blush Ivory. If your cup has a soft peachy pink background rather than plain white hand-painted fruit or flowers, and heavy raised gold that you can actually feel with a fingernail, stop and look for 2 marks, not 1. Royal Worcester has been in production since 1751, and for a narrow window between roughly 1891 and 1920, their blush ivory line was hand-painted by named artists whose initials appear tucked into the corner of the design, easy to miss unless you are already looking for them. A Royal Worcester Blush Ivory Cup, signed by a known painter, sold at a regional auction house for just over $2,000. More than most people would guess for something they have been drinking coffee out of for years. Your test, run a fingernail lightly over the gold trim. Raised, textured gold means it was applied by hand across multiple firings, not printed on in a single flat pass. Then hunt the painted scene itself for tiny initials, sometimes no bigger than a grain of rice hidden inside a leaf or the fold of a petal. And the loss I see most often, a signed blush ivory cup goes into a box lot for $5 because the seller saw just an old pink teacup and never once looked for a signature hiding inside the paint. But before we get to the top 3, there is something about all of this that most people never stop to realize. The cups that turn out to be worth real money almost never look expensive walking past a shelf. They end up in a box in the garage, in a church rummage sale, on the 50-cent table at an estate liquidation, precisely because their owners decided they were old-fashioned and moved on without turning them over. Appearance keeps lying to people, over and over, in exactly the same way. What actually decides value is a small set of signals: the maker's mark, the shape of the handle, the paint texture, whether the gold is raised or flat, or whether the saucer truly matches. Those things are learnable, and once you know where to look, you cannot stop seeing them in your own cabinet or anyone else's. That is worth keeping in mind the next time you clear out a cabinet before a move, an estate sale, or a spring cleaning that almost cost somebody real money. Now, back to the countdown. Number 3, Haviland Limoges, the everyday pattern. Haviland built its entire American business around one idea in the mid-1800s: sell fine French porcelain directly to American brides through mail-order catalogs, skipping department stores entirely. Because of that, an enormous amount of Haviland Limoges survives in ordinary attics across the country today, usually dismissed as just grandma's French china, because so much of it exists that people assume common automatically equals cheap. Sometimes that assumption is true. But certain discontinued Haviland patterns, especially those with a raised gold rim and a factory mark used only between 1876 and 1889, called the H and Commodores mark, with a specific decorating number stamped directly underneath, have sold for $400 to $600 a cup and saucer. Your test tonight: read the mark carefully, word by word. If it says simply Haviland, France, it is common and modestly valued, worth keeping but not worth excitement. If it carries H and Co's with a number stamped directly beneath it, you're standing in the rarer decorating window. And the quiet truth here is that most people flip a Haviland cup, see a jumble of French words and numbers, and set it right back down without reading a single one of them. That jumble is a dated, numbered confession, and it is sitting right there in your hand. Number 2, the saucer. This is the one that quietly costs people the most money, but because the value was never in one object. It is in a pair. A beautiful cup sitting alone is worth a fraction of the same cup resting on its true matching saucer. Collectors want the set, and a lone cup, however lovely, reads as an orphan piece with nothing to prove where it came from. Here is what almost nobody checks. Set the cup down on the saucer and look at how the gold is worn on both pieces. It should be faded to the same degree in the same places. The pattern number under the glaze should be identical on cup and saucer. The back stamps should match exactly, not just look similar. A saucer that fits but does not truly match is what dealers call a marriage. 2 pieces from different sets put together later, and it drags the price back down toward nothing. Your test: compare both back stamps side by side under good light, then check that the gold on both has aged the same way. In 20 years, I have watched more money lost to a broken up set than to any outright forgery. Someone kept the pretty cup on the shelf and let the plain saucer go in a separate box, and quietly gave away half the value with their own hands. Number 1, blue willow. Deep cobalt blue, a pagoda. A bridge with 3 tiny figures crossing it, 2 birds flying above a willow tree. So familiar it practically disappears the moment you see it. Your kids probably rolled their eyes at it. You have half believed them. Here's the truth that turns this whole list around. Blue willow is arguably the single most reproduced china pattern in the history of tableware, made continuously since the late 1700s by dozens of different factories in England, America, and Japan, which is exactly why the ordinary pieces from the mid-20th century are worth only $8 to $25. Fame is not value. The thing everyone recognizes is almost never the thing worth the most, because the whole world already has one sitting in a cabinet somewhere, usually chipped, usually mismatched, usually taken completely for granted. I will not inflate this for you. Most blue willow teacups are honestly worth about what a decent breakfast costs, and if that is what yours turns out to be, that is simply the truth of it. But, and this is the reframe I have been building toward for 9 items now, the value was never in the pattern itself. It was always in the maker and the date printed underneath it. Early English blue willow made by Royal Doulton, Spode, or Wedgwood before roughly 1930, with hand-applied transfers and hand-painted gold accents added afterward, has sold for well over $200 a cup, while a Japanese export version from the 1970s, however deep and rich the blue looks to your eye, sits at the low end no matter what. So here is your final test, and it is the same skill every item tonight has been teaching you. Turn the cup over. Read the maker's name, not just the pattern. Check whether the gold rim, if there is one, has fine brush texture rather than a flat printed sheen. And do not assume the pattern's age is the cup's age. Blue willow has been made new, in the same design, every single decade since it was invented. So a new-looking cup can still be genuinely old, and an old-looking cup can be a copy made last year. Every single cup tonight came down to one habit. Turn it over, read the bottom. Believe what the mark tells you instead of what the pattern tells you. So before you clear out a single shelf, before you let anyone talk you into a flat box lot price, before you decide the old blue and white cups are just old blue and white cups, turn the cup over first. The whole skill fits into one sentence. The picture on the front is the story people tell you, and the mark on the bottom is the truth. Everything worth money tonight was plain, familiar, easy to walk right past, and every bit of it was decided in a mark most people never bother to read.